He's trying to reconnect, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Infinite Hot 7, you've not renamed yourself. Oh.
Tomorrow. Later. Please say again now. Please say platform. Concentrate in trying to do this. This thing.
So who is
All right. Sorry for that break in transmission. Please bear with me. My network is terrible here, but I think it's better now. I hope I can be heard clearly. Hello. Can I be
Loud and clear.
Hi, we can hear you,
yes,
sir.
we can
Thank
proceed.
you. We can hear you.
All right.
Yes,
Yeah, carry on, sir. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, hold on.
The truth of it is, like, the moment you're considered a social worker and a licensed one at that, you make sure whatever you're presenting as social workers goes in line with what you truly have. Because if not, this would only make or put you in a position where you'll be exposed to litigation and even a situation where your identity and your license can even be withdrawn. So you want to make sure that all your credentials are accurate. The next we'll now be looking at is ethical responsibilities with the social work profession. Now, what is expected of you as a social worker? What should be your attitude towards the profession in itself? One, you have to be loyal. You have to have integrity. So loyalty and integrity to the profession is an ethical responsibility social work profession. Now, this means that if you, as a social worker, you are expected to follow the dictates of the social work principles. That is what it means to be loyal. You swore an oath to take up practice and to be serious about practice. Now, ensuring you continue to abide by these principles as far as practice is concerned shows you're loyal to practice. The social workers must also relentlessly work towards improving the knowledge and skill base of the profession. So whatever you do, try to see how you can contribute your quota to improving the profession. That is what is expected of you as a social worker. So it's not just about passively practicing, you must be active. And this entails that while being active, you contribute to the development of the profession. Earlier on, when we were talking about social work practice in Nigerian setting, we're able to lay our hands on tangible evidence that yes, we are not where we are supposed to be, but at least we are not where we used to be. That is to say, to some extent, to a reasonable extent, the social work practice have a presence here in Nigeria, and we are making improvements. Now, as an ethical responsibilities to the social work profession, the question you will now be asking yourself, what contribution to knowledge, to practice, can you bring to the table to improve the social work profession in Nigeria? That agency, that organization where you practice, what can you do to improve service delivery? And I want to believe, or I want to encourage us that our topics in our respective groups should be reflective of this, to capture what you can do or what social workers can do to improve in their various levels of expertise. That is what it means to be responsible to the social work profession. Going forward, social workers must work towards maintenance and setting high standard for professional practice, keeping in view the values of social work. So, social work profession or practice has been there even before you happen to join the profession. So that standards you've come to meet, please maintain it. Don't run it or bring it down. What is expected of you is to maintain and to continue to keep it high in view with the values of social work, right? So social workers must ensure that their practice environment will provide the much needed privacy, confidentiality, and security for clients. Now let's dwell on this a bit. You have the responsibility to ensure that your professional environment is safe for your clients. One of the things that is expected of you as social workers is to provide a safe space for our clients to relate with us freely. You don't expect your clients you don't expect to engage your client and expect to get the best of your clients when your clients feel insecure, when the environment is not safe. Sometimes when we talk about safety, it's not just on will I say physical safety. We're also talking about confidentiality, their privacy. The clients or the environment in which you are engaging your clients, is it safe enough for your clients to reveal some private information to you? You're a social worker and your husband is not a social worker, or your wife is not a social worker, or you have children. Will it be safe to take your client's file or confidential information to your house, to your home? All these are things you should consider. Or will it be safe to interview your clients at home? Sometimes even at office, at work, the environment might not be conducive enough to engage your clients. So it's not enough for you to say, okay, fine, after all, I'm in the office. I think I'm right to interview my clients. So you must ensure that your environment provide the much needed privacy. It is expected of you. That is your responsibility. We'll now be looking at your ethical responsibilities or the ethical responsibility of social workers to their various institutions. So wherever you practice, you have a responsibility, you have an ethical responsibility to that institution, to that organization. And one of the things that is expected of you is administrative transparency. Yeah, we do not look out for bad, but we expect the worst to happen, right? Because we are humans and nothing is promised, right? So social workers employed as administrators in social work educational institutions, as directors, as principals, as head of departments, as fieldwork coordinators, whatever category or levels of practice you find yourself, you must ensure transparency in your activities keeping in view the core values of social work, which has to do with integrity. So oftentimes you see people complaining about the head, like where we find ourselves in Nigeria. Sometimes most persons tend to point at our leaders, but as individuals, what are you doing to address these issues? So as individual social workers, you have responsibilities to uphold the integrity of the profession. So you must ensure transparency in whatever you're doing, in your dealings with your colleagues. Even when you're their superior, how do you relate with them? And this will go a long message to your subordinates, that if you can relate with them that way, that means clients are safe in your hands. You cannot have those under you as, will I say, slaves, or you're relating with them as, will I say, second-class citizen, and you expect them to still feel that clients are safe under you, and you expect them to have a different attitude towards their clients. So especially when you're their superior, the way you relate with your clients, the way you relate with your colleagues, will send this message to your subordinates. Would also send a message to your clients, whether they should feel safe with you or not, or even the agency. Social work administrators must ensure that every form of discrimination is avoided. Yes, to some of us, tribalism, bigotry is deeply rooted in our blood. We must, as social workers, work very hard to get rid of such sentiments and discrimination so that it won't find its roots or way in practice, right? So we want to relate with people and give everyone equal opportunity, devoid of their background. Financial transparency. Social workers in institutions, agencies, and organizations must be transparent in all financial dealings. Please, let me break it down, because we start from the known to the unknown. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we are asked to take custody of organizational fund, or to keep a client's, will I say, money, especially those who find themselves in hospital settings. You understand this. When you're into case management and you're trying to get clients to get funding to care for their health, services, right? To pay for their health, to pay for their bills, hospital bills, right? Sometimes you see yourself keeping custody of client money. You must make sure you use that money for the purpose for which that money is meant for. You've been placed in groups, and you have the responsibility of making some contribution, and someone will have to keep that money. Please, even if you think you have a better idea as to how this kind of monies should be used, please subject it to scrutiny, and not just to your own personal scrutiny. Engage other members of the group. Let them know what you're thinking. And if they say no, that money is not yours. It belongs to the group. It belongs to the organization. You must use monies for which, of that purpose for which it was meant for. Even if you're dying and you feel that there's a money in your hand to save your life, please, that money was not or is not for you, was not contributed for you. So that is what it's required for social workers to be transparent. And whatever is spent, please, there should be clear record as to how that money was spent. If members of the group or organization are asking you, okay, fine, you that is keeping this money, please can you withdraw so and so money or use so and so money for so and so purpose? Please get approval and document it. Do not be emotional when it comes to financial dealings with your clients and with your organization. It is important for institutions, agencies, and organizations to be accountable for the money they receive. Please file annual returns with tax income department and ensure that auditing is done regularly. Right. The next we'll be looking at is ensuring credibility and high standards. Remember, we are still talking, or we are still on the ethical responsibility to the social work profession. We are still on.
Good morning, ma. Bye, ma. Where did they go? Where?
Anyeti Asupo.
Okay, watch it.
Anyeti Asupo.
I'm sorry, sir, please. Sorry, please, sir.
So we are still discussing on ethical responsibilities of social work to their various institutions. And we are now looking at ensuring credibility and high standards, right? So the social work or social work institutions, agencies
that one said now ensuring
should thrive to ensure credibility and set high standard of practice. Some of you might want to engage or go into private practice. So your organization, you must ensure that your organization maintain or set a high standard in practice. You must ensure that your organization is credible enough to uphold the credibility of the profession. And your staff, the social workers employed, and other staff employed in your organization must put efforts to uphold the integrity of the social work profession. Now, this will not just translate to the profession, it will also put your organization on that high pedestal where they will be known, or it will be known to have integrity. Social work institutions, agencies, organizations must set example by providing quality services, by employing qualified, experienced, and deserving services to providers, right? So when it comes to organization setting examples, when it has to do with service delivery, the social work institution should be known for this, right? You should not employ, just like we considered earlier, as an ethics, the social worker is expected to present or not to avoid any form of misrepresentation. So it will be out of place or wrong for a social work organization to employ persons who are not qualified to assume positions of social work or social workers in their organization. People who are not deserving, for this will send a wrong message to service users, right? So I will now give room for us to ask questions based on what we discussed or from your own personal study. Please feel free to ask questions.
Yes, I have questions, sir.
Okay, please introduce yourself and speak.
All right, my name is Ome Michael. My question is on the ethical responsibility as a professional. So under professional competence, you mentioned that we should take that you talked about taking jobs and referrals from our area of specialization. So I want to ask, what about those that have BSc in social work, that is, that have not specialized, and they as well have a license to practice as well? What should happen to them, sir, in kinds of specialization?
Okay, now you as an individual social worker determines the area for which you want to specialize on, right? And having identified the area you're interested in, all you're expected to do is to gain training, to get training and be satisfied in those areas, right? Now, if you're looking for a job, a social work job, related job, all you're expected to do is to go to where your services are needed in line with your professional expertise. Now, it doesn't just stop there. As a social worker, professional competence also entails that if you're referring clients to other agency or social workers, you must refer clients to other agencies and social workers that are professionals in the area of expertise where your clients need services. Because you're referring your clients to another agency due to the fact that the needs of your clients falls outside the expanded boundaries of your area of specialty. So it will be totally out of place for you to still send your client out to another agency or another social worker whose qualification cannot address the client's problem. So now, if you are a social worker and you've identified an area of specialization and you've gained training and you're certified in this area, then all you're expected to do is to practice within the expanded boundaries of your area of specialty. I don't know if that addresses your question.
It does, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you are still expected to continue to improve by engaging in continuous learning, attending seminars, workshops, and conferences to improve in that area of specialty. You find yourself in hospital setting. Now, a client that comes to the hospital have a particular problem that makes him or her to come to the hospital. After addressing that issues, you now notice that other issues, underlying issues, that even prompted this client to come to the hospital in the first place. For example, you're in the hospital and the client comes with bruises. You notice, okay, fine, this client, after engaging the client, you notice that, okay, fine, the client was beaten by the husband. That is intimate partner violence. After rendering psychosocial support, talking and advising as well as counseling the client, and helping other healthcare professionals to attend to the client in line with the client's values, and you're discharging this client to go back to that same house where the husband is. Now, we have social workers who are professionals or who are with professional expertise in family-related issues. Such a client should be referred to this set of social workers to address these other aspects of the client's problem. And at that level, the social workers at that end can deem it fit to also engage with the husband to see how they can censor the environment so that this issue of intimate partner violence will not occur again. So do not assume that since you're a social worker, please, social workers, please avoid assumptions. Do not assume. Because if you assume, you put yourself in the wrong in the wrong position, right? So do not assume because you're a social worker, you're in a position to handle every situation. No. Because in the end, you will see yourself jumping from one place to another, achieving nothing. You're a medical social worker, you're expected to be in the hospital. Well, would you not have time to go to the homes of your clients to conduct kind of social investigation and also to contact or engage the husband so as to see the need to avoid actions or inactions that will lead to intimate partner violence? So it's best for you to refer such clients to those who are saddled with the responsibility of handling such. Is that clear?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Further questions, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I am Mrs. Ngozi George, and just a question, comment. Really, I really appreciate how you have been taking on, despite the network we are managing to hear. But I want to say, you talked about ensuring credibility and high standard. Employing a quality staff and all that come with certificate, and you see somebody come with certificate, and by the time you now interview the person and give the person the job, we discover that his knowledge cannot match the certificate, that he doesn't have any training at all. What he in fact is not qualified to do the work. So I'm thinking that beyond the certificate, there should be a training for the social workers or people that are intending to be social workers. They need to undergo network.
We can hear you now.
I don't know if you heard me, sir.
Please repeat what you said lastly. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, it's quite unfortunate. Mrs. Ngozi George, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Okay.
I
Yes.
want to say what she said. She's asking that you talked about credibility and high standard. That most times those who have degrees in social work, that when they get employed, they don't have the basic knowledge of the job. They don't have experience on the job. But what I have to say concerning that is that, it's just one day that will make someone must start from somewhere. After leaving school, you don't employ a social worker, or he or she is not employed anywhere. There's no way the social worker can get the due experience. People learn on jobs. As they go out to do a job as a social worker. You employ someone, you could use that period to enhance the person on training on that particular job. And I feel because the person is qualified already, it will be easier for the person to perfect on the job. Because I think from my experience, from where I'm coming from, all we have is in social welfare, Ministry of Social Welfare. And the staff there, they call themselves social workers. And none of them knows the difference. Most of them read what's called sociology. And there's a great difference between sociology and social work. It's not the same. So they say, some will say, I'm a sociologist, so I'm a social worker. It can't be the same. And right now, when you go, like, I'm just talking from experience, you go for practicum to those areas. And the staff there, you discover they are very uncomfortable when they know that you're pursuing a degree in social work. They feel you're coming in to take their jobs from them. So what I want to encourage her, Mrs. Ngozi, is that when someone is employed in your organization as a social worker, you make out time to teach the person. And I'm sure the person will learn on the job. Thank you, sir.
Okay, can I
Thank you.
contribute here?
Hello, sir.
Thank you, Onyemichi, for that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, sir.
Thank you, Onyemichi, for that nice contribution. Okay,
Hello.
please hold on. I will call you. You just indicate, okay? Ezen Wuzo. Hello, Mr. Rinze.
Yeah, hello, can I speak now?
Please speak.
Okay, I just want to add to what the last speaker has spoken. You know, there is this thing we do in Nigeria by downgrading or downplaying the importance of degree. And I won't speak much because the last person has said everything. Yes, people even go to nursing school, medical school, and study and got a degree. And without practice, they might not have full knowledge of what the practice is all about. Now,
You said?
that doesn't
Okay,
mean
this is
that anybody who has the opportunity to practice without having a degree is better. So what we are supposed to do is to create an avenue for people who have gone to school, spent their years, 4 years or 3 years or whatever type of years, to now have the experience needed. Because there is one thing is certain, that the person that have a degree, once you put him on the job, he will do faster, better than those people that have been even there without a degree. If not, then what is the need for the degree? So let's not just downplay the importance of the certification. Okay, the difference is just about having opportunity to practice. And if you claim that you think you are doing the right thing, wait until a trained social worker with degree come in, start learning. Then you will understand that as the person learn on the job, he will even improve it and do it more better because he have theoretical experiences with some internship. All he needed is an opportunity to grow and even better those things you guys have been doing for years. Okay, and this is why social work in Nigeria still remains a kind of a nascent profession, because the people practicing it all over the time are not the people with the requisite training and licensing. So that is just what I want to add. We most of us has our degree in special field. If I come to that your field, I can't do better until I go through training. No matter how gifted I am, only training can make me competent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Anthony Nwanze.
Thank you very much. I have a question. My question is a little bit different from part of the ethics. Part of the ethics is social workers ensuring social justice. And I observe that what we experience or what we get in Nigeria is we have a lot of social problem in Nigeria, and we have social workers who are trained. We have social workers who are trained to deal with individual cases. We have, in a country where we have over 200 million people, and the last press release stipulated the number of social workers, certified social workers who are chartered, and this is less than, I think it's less than 1,000 in a country of over 200 million people. So, and that simply means that to solve this problem, social workers need to be more concerned about systemic issues, policy issues that affect a lot of people. For example, in this administration, this current government, I don't think the economic policy has actually brought down a lot of middle income earner to nothing. And we are talking about social justice. So I don't know, I know that practicing social work at the macro level go beyond, maybe I have a funding from an organization, I'm doing community work. In Nigeria, who is working with government to ensure social justice? Who is coming out as a social worker? If I not really confront, say government policy is not taking into consideration the people, would that be against the ethics of saying, no, you don't call out government, or you need to be on the same page, like the current press release that was like hailing government. Meanwhile, a lot of people have gone down into poverty, and we have a lot of vulnerable people in the community. Just to raise this as a question. Thank you, and over.
All right. Thank you for all your wonderful contributions. This goes further to buttress the fact that knowledge is being gained, and the purpose for this training is achieved, or gradually being achieved. Well, you've made a lot of inputs and made some valid points. But then let's put things in perspective. Beginning with the first person that raised concern. I want to believe you're back and you can hear us clearly, or hear me clearly. The truth of the matter is, like we said, social work practice is still evolving. Even in Western world, where so the social work profession or practice there is at an advanced level, it's still evolving, because social work practice has to do with human and the environment, and as we know, the human nature and the environment itself is dynamic. It keeps changing, right? So it's still evolving. Not to talk of in the developing countries like Nigeria, where social work presence is still growing, right? But then, based on the phase we find ourselves, we have a lot of persons who are assuming the role of social work when they are in the real life situation. They are not, right? Because they don't have any training. In
I
social
can't
work,
hear
right?
you clearly.
That's sorry, something came up. I hope I can be heard clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Welcome back.
All right. So the fact that we find ourselves in a situation where the profession is still struggling, and people who are not even social workers claim to be social workers, does not mean we should relegate the standards. We should downplay the ethics and the standards of the social work profession. Now, let's assume you're in private practice and you own an NGO or a social work firm. Would you say because a certificate does not matter, you go ahead to employ people who are not social workers? No, it is not done that way. Even though social workers or people with BSc background in social workers still need to learn in the job, the basic requirements would be employing people who are social workers. Then you can now start from there to give them the necessary training to learn in the job. For those who are already in the ministries, agencies, who are not social workers, fine. We are not going to pursue them, but what we'll do is to train them. And that is why we have these arrangements. In fact, some of you are even from this background. You're here because you want to be trained and be licensed in social work, because over the years, you've been doing social work job without being licensed as a social worker. And the reason you're here is because the Nigerian society is shifting from that traditional way of doing things to a more professional way and institutionalized way of practicing. You're beginning to see that, okay, fine, if I don't have a background, if I'm not licensed as in social work, my job is being threatened. I might not necessarily, or I might not be able to practice well. That is why you're here. And until we get it right, in fact, as we speak, gradually, that door where people can be employed, whether you're a social worker or not, can be employed to do social work jobs, is beginning to shut down. So what we are trying to do now is to train those who find themselves inside, who are already inside without the social work background. We are now trying to train these ones to give them the basic and necessary training that will help them function and give them the license to practice as social workers. But going forward, as a social worker, one of ethical expectation or requirements as a social worker is that if you're employing social work staff or workers, there must be people who are qualified. And one of the basic requirements for that qualification is a training, a qualification in social work. And if you're privileged or opportune to be called upon to interview people that are considered for a social work job, as a social worker, you should be able to identify someone who is good and someone who is not. Fine, interview might just last for 1 or 2 days, or 1 day and a few hours, right, within the day. But then, as a professional, you should know how to table your questions or how to present your questions to get what you want from these individuals, right? And it doesn't just stop there. You still need to subject them to in-service training. That is an expectation too. So you see that these ethical responsibilities or ethical standard we are considering does not just apply to an individual social worker. It also applies to your superior in your office. It also applies to the organization itself. So while the individual social worker is pushing to develop his or her capacity to improve in service delivery, the organization must also see it as a duty, as a responsibility. In fact, as an ethical responsibility to ensure that the social workers in that organization are properly trained. That is why from time to time, they make provisions for in-service training and allow their social work staff to go for workshops and attend seminars where they can be trained to improve in service delivery. I hope this addresses the question, right? I can see the hand of Asukwa. Please unmute yourself and speak. As Anyeti Asupo. Can I be heard? Please, if you can hear me
Yes.
on mute.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we
Please.
can hear you. Probably her mic
Yes,
is
yes.
muted and talking.
Hello, yes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hello, sir. Yeah, this is
Good
Anetia
morning.
Supo. Yeah, this is Anetia Supo speaking.
Okay.
I have two things to talk about. This last one, the issue of maybe professional having experience, work experience. There are some organizations, like maybe in the medical lines, that they have facility for people to volunteer. They can use maybe people that are already social workers, they are already trained, but they don't have experience. They open up the opportunity for volunteering. So through there, they gain experiences. So the second one is that the other one was talking about the other question. I wanted to find out, can somebody practice? Maybe you have studied or specialized in more than one field. Can somebody practice in more than one field in social?
Okay.
So those are my contributions, my question and contribution. Thank you, sir. This one, my son, is down my hand.
Hello. Hello.
I think he has internet issue. He will be joining us.
Hello,
He
I
will be
can't hear
rejoining.
anything too.
Yeah, he has internet issues. He will be rejoining. So he says he's the new host now.
Let's wait for him to back.
Wow.
What is happening?
Oh, sorry. My network is messed up today. But I'm back, right? So, in response to the last question that was raised, yes. As far as your training, the bottom line is having the training. And the reason for having this multiple training is to be open to multiple opportunities, right? So as far as you're trained in different areas, if opportunity comes in these areas, you're qualified. You're qualified. Please, the truth of it is, if you're considering employing a social worker and you see someone that has volunteered for 2 years or for even 5 or even 10 years and has been practicing social work, that does not make the person a social worker. That doesn't make the person a social worker. We must get that facts right. So if you say you want to employ a social worker and you're employing such a person, that does not mean you've employed a social worker. right? So if, for example, now I hire you to employ social workers for me, mind you, we are talking about competence in practice. I employ you to hire social workers for me, or I contact you to hire social workers for me. And in the end, you've hired, I said I needed 5 social workers, and you sent 5 names to me, only for me to see their qualifications. Some of them are in geography, biology, physics, and the rest. But you're justifying that they are social workers because they've volunteered to practice social work for the past 5 years. In fact, immediately you're sending a message to me that you're not competent. Why would you send such names to me when I need social workers? It's just like saying, okay, fine, I want to employ nurses, and you're sending names of auxiliary nurses to me. Auxiliary nurses are not nurses. So we must get the facts right. So if you're employing auxiliary social workers, you must employ them as the name implies. Okay, these persons are auxiliary social workers, not social workers. And mind you, people that are not licensed to practice social work, there's a limit to what they can do. So even when you say you manage to employ people because of their experience, you want to use them as social workers, you should know that there is a limit to what they can do. There are things they cannot do because they are not liable, or they are not binded by the core social work values and social work principles. So as such, if they engage in malpractice suit, they are not liable. And if you're going to employ such persons, imagine having such persons in your agency who are not, they are not core social workers, and they are not liable to malpractice suit. They have nothing to answer when they engage in malpractice. And as such, they are at liberty to engage in all manner of practice, because they know that they are not liable to litigations, right? But the social worker who is liable to litigations would engage in careful practice, because he knows that his or her personality or reputation is at stake. Her license, or his or her license, is also at stake. So we want to understand these things and put them in perspective, right? So we cannot replace a licensed or a professional and qualified social worker for someone who is not licensed and who is not qualified. So that person that has these multiple years of experience, fine. If the person is good, granted, some of them are very good, granted, the person should be encouraged or should be advised to go and get the necessary qualification so that he or she can be engaged, right?
What is happening?
What is again? I beg. Eh? About today lecture no be here. Network take time, oh. Network just take time. I go arrest you now and take you to psychiatric hospital. What's that? Oh, wow.
Alexa is disturbing us today.
No be disturb. This one just the pepper us. That my guy they shout. The pepper enter him body.
I can't hear anything again, no.
You can't.
we are hearing you.
What is that? We
It
dey
was
hear you now.
terrible.
I swear. Nah, today lecture no be here. Oh. I wan tire.
One chance network.
One chance network.
Let's hope for the better. Hope it will improve.
Maybe. Chai.
It's making the lecture to take too much time.
Sorry, actually, I wasn't talking. Hello? Hello? Actually, I was
Hello.
not. I like talking of work experience. A graduate of
Yeah.
social work. That's what I was referring to. Not maybe just an outsider from the. Though actually, other people they also volunteer on other courses. But I'm talking of like we were talking about how can somebody get experience.
Hello, can I
Work.
be heard?
Okay, yes, sir.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
Can you
back.
hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. We can hear you. Today
All
network no
right,
be
please,
follow. What
please
happened?
mute your mics. Sorry, the network is not friendly at all today. Sorry. Kindly mute your mic.
Very
Let's see how
obvious.
we can, quickly wrap it up, okay?
Yes, sir.
Anyete Asukwo, is your hand up? You want to say something?
Yes, sir. Concerning that volunteering,
Yes,
I was
yes.
talking in terms of maybe people that are looking for job experience, work experience, that they can volunteer.
Okay.
That's in the field of
Okay.
a graduate of social work.
Okay,
Though
I
actually,
understand.
yes, that's what I meant. Thank you,
Okay.
sir, for contribution.
All right. How about Ernest Ukaebu? Ukaebu. Ernest
Yes, sir.
Ukaebu.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to contribute to the previous speaker that mentioned working in different aspects of social work.
Okay.
I'm going to use Australia where I am as a case study. Once you are qualified as a social worker, registered, you can practice in every aspect of the profession. For example, I used to be a clinical social worker in the hospital. But now, I don't work as a clinical social worker in the hospital anymore. I work as a counselor. So once you qualify here, you can practice you can practice even as tenancy advocate. Again, the last person that question asked about volunteering. We don't have anything like volunteering in social work here.
Hello.
What they have here.
Hello. Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Please, if you can hear me, let me know.
I can hear you.
We can hear
Hello.
you, sir.
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Hello. Can I?
We can hear you, Ada.
Yes,
We
sir.
can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Oh, chai. I think we better call it a day today here. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
I don't know
Hello.
if I should continue talking or wait for the lecturer to come.
Wait for
His
him.
network is very bad, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's like that today. Chai. That is one of the problems we have. Yeah,
That's Niger. Niger for
the,
you.
the, the wealth of experience he has, he cannot deliver it because of network.
That's
What
it.
experience?
That's Niger for you.
But we can do better anyway. Let me just contribute because maybe before he comes, I'll bring down my hand. Is that all right?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
He's
Hello,
back.
can you hear me now?
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Welcome
Okay.
back.
Oh, sorry about that. Please, someone sent a message. I can't access the message again, but I think let me address it. If you check your chats, the chat, you're saying that social workers, I agree. Social workers draw experiences from psychology, sociology, and the rest. But that does not mean psychology is social work. That does not mean sociology.
Are you mad?
That does not mean sociology is social work, right? So it's just like a medical doctor using, will I say, experience, drawing from the experience of a lab scientist or a radiographer or a radiologist. That doesn't make the medical doctor a radiologist. That doesn't make the medical doctor a lab scientist. But they need these disciplines, will I say, this experience to understand and interpret scans and x-rays and even lab results. That doesn't make them lab scientists. And that would not make a medical doctor or maybe a lab scientist to say, okay, fine, I am a medical doctor. We must understand this and put things in perspective. When it comes to social work related jobs, social workers are capable, are the only ones that are expected to handle these jobs. And they are the only ones that are licensed to handle these jobs in an ideal situation. That is not obtainable in Nigeria because the profession is still growing, right? But we are getting there. And like I said, the doors are gradually being shut. So in areas, in developed countries where we have an ideal practice situation or environment, if you're not a licensed social worker, you are not allowed to handle social work related jobs. I think someone was trying to share his or her experience as a clinical social worker in Australia. I want to believe that if you're not a licensed clinical social worker, you won't be assigned or allowed to do that job. Unless maybe you can only be allowed to do that job at the level of a caregiver, not as a licensed social worker. And as such, at that level, where you're not licensed, there are responsibilities that are specifically reserved for professional and licensed social worker that you can never be allowed to do. Yes, you can quote me anywhere. So I want to understand this and know that if you want people to assume the role of a social worker and be allowed to practice, then they must be trained, they must be certified, and they must be licensed. I don't know if that is clear. Can we proceed?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that my contribution is that for the fact that one has BSc social work does not make the person a professional social worker. The right thing is that the person must be trained, maybe as master's level, even in developed countries. You can have BSc in allied field.
Hello, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Fine.
sir.
Fine. Having a degree in social work does not automatically translate to license. There are some of you here in this class.
Excellent. Yeah.
There are some of you here in this class that are BSc holders in social work. There are some of you here in this class that are final year students in the Department of Social Work. They are my students, but they are still in this class for the sake of that licensing. I don't know if you get the point.
Great,
I don't know if you
excellent.
get the point.
So, yes, sir.
Thank you. So we're looking at conflicts or value conflicts. And we say that value conflicts is a situation in which social workers value, that is, you as an individual, your personal values conflicting with the professional values. There are things by virtue of your background you will not like to do, or you will not want to do, because it's not in line with your personal values. And as such, it is clashing with the value system of a client, your agency, your co-worker, or the society in general. Value conflict happens frequently in social work practice, and there are ways of handling this situation. Earlier on, I made reference to what we refer to as ethical dilemma. Value conflict can also result to ethical dilemma, right? And there are ways or modalities on how to address these issues whenever they arise. But first, let us look at examples of everyday value conflict in social work. One, should you tell your mother your sister has a drug problem? This one can be referred to as honesty versus loyalty. Now, as a social worker, you're expected to be loyal to the ethics of the profession. And one of the loyalty that is expected of you as a social worker is to maintain confidentiality. But then, as a value, as individual, you're an honest person. You wouldn't want to lie to your mother. You wouldn't want to lie to your siblings. So you'll now be having problems. This person, this is my client. Should I tell my mother? Or you're a social worker and you understand, or maybe your sister, your relative opened up to you. You'll now be struggling with your personal value, whether to tell her parents or your parents about his or her drug problem, or to maintain loyalty to the social work profession, which has to do with confidentiality. Another example is, should children be taught to respect authority without question? This is a value conflict that has to do with tradition and independent thinking. Remember, in social work, there's a principle of client self-determination, where clients are allowed to make decisions for themselves, as far as those decisions will not hurt them or hurt others. We allow them to proceed. So now, as a social worker, you might not be faced with the value conflicts, because this kind of thinking is not in line with your tradition, with your custom. Where you come from, children are expected, or children are taught to respect their parents without questioning. But then, in social work, you're taught that people should be allowed to make decisions for themselves without interfering. It becomes a conflict. Now, another example is, if family is one of your most important values and you're offered an amazing job across country, far from family, do you take it? You begin to see the family conflict of family tradition versus individualism / achievement. So these are some of the value conflicts we might encounter in a course of practice or in social work practice. In your materials, you have a lot of these examples. You can do well to go through them. But then, how can these values or conflict values be addressed? In social work, there is what we refer to as use of self and self-awareness. There is one philosopher that said, man knows thyself. You know yourself and you know what you can take. From the beginning, you should begin to subject your values, those innate thoughts, keep them side by side with social work values, and try to see how you can handle these value conflicts. Mind you, in our services to our clients becomes paramount, because we are rendering services to our clients, not to ourselves. So if our client needs the services the way or in a way that will bring them out from a problem, please do not prioritize your personal values. And if you feel that your personal values is coming on the way of your intervention and engagement with your client during the course of professional relationship, it would be best to refer that client to another colleague or another agency instead of proceeding in error. I want to believe this has been explained well. If that is the case, I would like us to stop here since network has managed to allow us go this far. Let me see if I can take further questions from you, and hoping that next week the network will allow us to do better. And from our course outline, we should be rounding up this course by next week. So when we meet next time, we'll be looking at problems faced by social workers in ethical decision making. I can see the hand of Ngozi George. Please unmute yourself and speak. Ngozi George, can you hear me? Okay, let me believe the hand is not a serious hand. But can I be heard? If I can be heard, please let me know.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Good morning. I think Mr. Dennis has something to say. All right.
I didn't get that. What did you say?
I think Mr. Dennis had something to say before you left because of the network.
Okay. Please. Is that Onyebuchi Jumbo?
Onyemechi, sir.
Onyebuchi, rather.
Yes, sir. And I have a question, sir.
Okay,
like
please.
In this area of this conflict value conflicts, and you talked about this hello, sir. This
I can hear you.
use of self-awareness. I have a question to ask. Like, there's an incident that happened that occurred, you know. It happened that I was aware of it. A lady, and that lady is a social worker. She says she's a social worker, but I know she's not a social worker because she works in Ministry of Ministry of Social Welfare over the years. So a situation where her husband is abusing her herself, and she knew all these years, and she kept covering the man until the girl spoke out to a neighbor who reported her to a social worker. And when we intervened in the case, and the woman was claiming that she is a social worker, and a lawyer came in, and we were advised, we spoke with the lawyer, and we advised the lawyer. The lawyer told us that the man must be arrested, and the woman was raising dust. So in such situation now, can she say she's a social worker, knowing that injustice is being melted to that poor girl? That's my question, sir.
That is the reason I was passionate about trying to address that issue when the question came up. The thing is, a social worker, a licensed social worker, will be careful not to engage in practice that is questionable, because it would damage his or her reputation, it will affect her practice, and even her license will be withdrawn.
Yes, sir.
The same way a medical doctor, a lawyer is careful in practice to avoid litigation, is the same way a social worker is expected, a licensed social worker is expected to be careful in practice, because your reputation, your license is in the line. But someone who is not, a person who is not licensed, who is not a professional, don't care. And especially in countries like Nigeria, where, will I say, anything can go. People are not bothered. Now, in this case, now there are two things are involved. One, like the lawyer said, that person can be arrested and tried in a court of competent jurisdiction. And the social workers in that area too can also charge that person to court for impersonation. Because that person who is not a licensed social worker but claiming to be a licensed social worker is damaging the reputation of the social work profession.
Yes, sir.
So that person must be charged to court of competent jurisdiction and the right punishments, methods to serve as deterrent to others. And also to be on public notice that this person that is parading his or herself as social worker and doing some form of practice or taking advantage of client is not a social worker. To send that message clear so that people will not, will I say, be judging the social workers based on this person that is not a social worker, just to uphold the social work professional image in that environment. I don't know if that is clear.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. So,
thank you.
Any further question? I can see the hand of Arinze up.
Okay, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, mine is just a short question. Will you advise a social worker to easily switch job when he sees a higher paying job, or will you advise that a social worker build competence in a particular area or specialty? Or for example, like I personally is having confusion about, I study social work with children in my master's and social work in bachelor's. Since my master's training is in children, but I have this kind of attraction to social gerontology, which is taking care of elderly people. So do you advise that we should just flow as the job comes, or will you advise that we should build on particular area of specialty and grow competence in it?
Okay, Mr. Arinze, well done. But then, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Arinze, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, your question, I would answer it this way, in two ways. One, this is a matter that requires consultation. So you have to consult me privately on that, right? Because this is personal. Okay? Is that clear?
Okay, okay.
Hello.
Okay, I can
This
hear
is
you.
personal, so you have to consult or contact me privately. This is personal. I say this is personal, and you have to contact me or consult me privately, right? And secondly, please, we must be careful as to how we give suggestions or advice to clients, so that it won't end up looking like, now my social worker tell me to do them that way. Please, there's what we refer or what we consider to be as principle of client self-determination, right? Clients should be allowed to make choices and decisions for themselves. In fact, when you're even guiding your clients to settle for a choice, you should avoid making some innuendos from your body language that will lead your clients or help your client to make a choice that you prefer. Do not make a client feel that, okay, fine, I prefer this choice. No. Let your clients see various options and let him or her settle for one. So while I said you should contact me for a personal, because this is a personal matter, I'm also saying that we should be careful when we have situations like this. Avoid deciding for your clients. And even when you're advising your client or guiding your clients to settle for a choice, do not be suggestive that this is better. Okay? Is that clear? Hello, is that clear?
Yes, it's clear, it's clear.
Yeah, very
All
good
right.
response.
All right. And we have the hand of Ngozi George.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, I have a very fast question. A guy in the university who is 17 years, addicted to drugs due to the kind of friends he's keeping and all that, and he discovered that he could not help himself again. But he met a social worker, but he still insists that he does not want the social worker to inform the parents that the parents are big men of God, pastors, and he doesn't want the parents to be aware of what's going on. But since we are practicing to the best interest of the client, and you know that if you inform the parents, the person is still under 18, the parents can decide maybe to change his accommodation to a better place where they can monitor him very well. They can decide to change his school for him if local environment is affecting him badly, and they can decide to take him to rehab or whatever. The parents can help better. But if the parent insists that he doesn't want the parents to know about it, what do you do?
Fine. First, it depends on the age of that child, right?
17.
It depends on the
17
age
years.
of that child. Okay, then the person is still under the custody of their parents. You must involve the parents. In fact, at that level, your engagement with that client should not be without the parents. Okay? Because
Okay.
it shouldn't be without the parents. And even in this situation, even if the child or that person in question is up to 18 years, for example, in Nigerian environment, an 18 to 20-year-old child is still living with the parents, right? Is still living with the parents. And it's what we refer to as the client support system. Happens to be the family. So this client decision, it still depends on you. This client decision not to let the parents know, will it help the clients? Will it expose the client to more dangers? Okay, take for example, a client is into cultism and people are after his or her life, and the client doesn't want you to let the parents know. When the parents, whereas if the parents are aware, they can as well assist the clients to escape. So you see that the choice of that client is further exposing the client to harm. So that client's choice is detrimental to both the client and likely to those around the clients. And we told us, and I told us some time ago, that these principles are not hard and fast rules. There are exceptions to these rules. And one of those exceptions is that if a client's decision or choice will expose the client to further harm and would also expose those around the client to harm, then there is no need holding fast to these principles. You have reasons to go contrary, right? So if you think the client's parents coming in this situation will help the clients, you're not expected to just jump, assume, and conclude. All you need to do as a social worker is to work on that client. See, the beautiful part of a social work or a social worker is your ability to work on your clients. Is to work on your client to the point of your client accepting that, yes, I gave us an instance some time ago, my personal experience, where I happened to have this client, a nurse who was HIV positive, and she happened to contact this HIV in the course of doing her job in the hospital. And she noticed she was positive, HIV positive, and she was finding it difficult to tell her fiancé. And her marriage was maybe in 1 or 2 months' time. I had to work on that client, and the client agreed. And I didn't just stop there. After working on the client, I also worked on her fiancé, preparing his mind, so that when I finally tell him that, okay, fine, this is the status of your fiancé, he will be in a position to accept it. So while working on your client, on that particular client. Also look for a way to work. If the client accepts to let you tell the parent, work on the parents. In fact, while working on the client, promise them that you present it in a way that there won't be problem. That the main point is for him to be assisted, and you want him to be assisted the right way. So the beautiful part of a social worker is you being competent and having what it takes, knowing your onions to help your clients and put your client in a comfortable position where they have that safe space to relate with you and trust you enough to settle for a choice that is best for them. I hope that addresses your question. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm clear, sir.
All right. Please, what is your name? You're this infinite or 7 that has been disturbing us. What is your name?
Ngozi.
Ngozi?
No, that's not the 7.
Huh? Okay, you're not the hot 7.
She is not the hot 7.
Okay, okay, okay.
I'm not the hot 7, no.
Okay. All right, we appreciate your wonderful contributions and your perseverance. We were able to achieve something against all odds. Even though the network was not friendly, we were able to achieve something. We appreciate that. So by next week, we would start our conversation, our meeting from professional boundaries in social work, right? Those what we refer to as professional boundaries and the problems faced by social work. Like I said earlier, by next week, we are looking at rounding up this class. So come prepared. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We're expecting the recording, please, sir.
Thank you, sir.